PuppyPaw and MaarineLorD have played in plenty of tournaments time and time again. I don't have the exact stats or numbers on me as far as how they've done previously, what the matchup is between them. I'm just assuming it's a little MaarineLorD tilted, but that's just because that's MaarineLorD. But I would not be surprised if someone said no. Actually, Puppy has taken him down a few times.
Yeah, I appreciate your prediction and respect for MaarineLorD. Right, he definitely. I think if you were going to say PuppyPaw has the lead, he might say "un moment, s'il vous plaît." Maybe I have more. I don't have a French accent. That's the only French I know. Dive it into game one here, ladies and gentlemen. MaarineLorD playing as the Ayubids, color red spawning down the south side of Rocky Canyon. His opponent, PuppyPaw, playing in the color blue as the Malians on the north side of the map. Already got that pit mine going out, and I'm curious to hear how you feel about this matchup, Dabston, because these are both civilizations that they want to have things like MaarineLorD go up to castle and get a fast castle, but the Malians don't want to be bothered either. Is the Malian boom better than something like the Ayubid fast castle? What are you thinking?
I mean, I feel like the key is how can first is, does the camel or does the Desert Raider is it actually able to do anything compared to the side of Mali? I feel like one or two jabs come out and it kind of just pushes that away. I don't know if it can actually, dive on and through under town center fire or anything like that, which I know it can't. And so I feel like the javelins will deter that away pretty well. And then it's just playing the Mali game. And as long as PuppyPaw can get some time to get up to castle to, not have a huge Gulam mass on his pit mines really early on, I think it'll be fine. But that's really one where this kind of early to mid game will do a lot with the Desert Raiders versus javelin throwers and trading there.
Yeah, I do like your opinion. I mean, the javelin throwers really, those javelin throwers decimate Desert Raiders, don't they? Whether they have their swords out or their bows, I guess they're treated as a ranged unit, which was news to me. I noticed when I first started to play Ayubids, then a couple horsemen took down my Desert Raider. I got really upset and started raging, and then I realized that they were ranged units. But anyway, the Valiants do have now. Think about, I mean, for the Ayubids in Castle, they want to make two different units. They either make Gulams or they make Camel Lancers, because that's what's available to them in Castle Age, right? Malians, I mean, against Gulams, they still have Musafati. Might it be worth having some Musafati come out?
Yeah, I think that PuppyPaw doesn't rush castle. I think he still plays the cow game. Like you do, like we talked about it in a Mali game we were casting earlier, where we're like, you get to this point where with the cows, you're like producing military, but you're also banking some resources to castle to where you're able to match it. And then if you start idling for even just 15 seconds or so, as far as military production goes, it's like, oh, and now I'm dropping the Grand Fulani Corral. But we will get to that a little bit later on. First, we already see the military wing coming in. We already see the Mansa Quarry on the way up. So passive resources is what this is all about. People always talk about the military wing. I think about it as essentially 90 free resources a minute, I think, is how much a Desert Raider costs. It's 180, and then, they get one every 2 minutes. So that's where Mansa Quarry and military wing kind of on somewhat equal footing in a sense.
Yeah, it's kind of comparable, isn't it? I mean, for the Desert Raider, the 90 resources do get locked in a Desert Raider production. I think that's the only difference. But otherwise, I mean, from an economic standpoint, they're pretty comparable. And I mean, the Mansa Quarry, I mean, shout out Mansa Musa, the richest man of his time. Dedicate that quarry to him. That extra gold per minute and that passive income, I mean, it just fits with the Malians so synergistically. And it's so, again, we talk about the Malians because we're seeing them over and over again today. It's very frustrating to play against them, and you almost have to think about it a little bit differently because you don't necessarily worry about killing their villagers. You worry about killing their buildings.
Yeah. It feels so weird, especially when casting games. You're like, oh, and Mali loses another villager. It's like, whatever.
Who cares?
Like all of a sudden, like Mali's down 20, or like I think it's very apparent against one of the matchups we saw today where it was the 2TC Song Dynasty versus Mali. And it's like, yeah, China's up 35 villagers. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Mali has full cow boom and has a lot more resources per minute because they're denying and forcing, villagers to run around in different spots, reallocating all these different things. So it's really one where cows can kind of make up for a little bit of that villager difference.
Right. Absolutely. And because of those cows, I guess they're technically passive income even though they're alive. The income from those, we see that from Malians once they hit like that 10 or 11 mark. They're like, yeah, I'm ready for late game. I don't know if you guys are, but I got all my stuff kind of built and I got all my stuff going on. So we're just going to go ahead and throw 100 military units into your face. And hopefully, MaarineLorD has the speed to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, PuppyPaw already dropping a wall onto the backside, not allowing that Desert Raider to constantly circle, constantly be annoying. Looks like MaarineLorD's going for a little bit of a block off, but there should be a javelin thrower right on over there in a second. And if not, it's super easy to wall around them actually. And actually, well, it's just a scout that pushes it on away.
Yeah, that's kind of all of it takes. The javelin thrower will be able to help it out. Rather, I mean, honestly, for a javelin thrower, it's a very difficult unit to face because, you know, I've seen situations where javelin throwers start raiding, you know, because they have a lot of ranged armor, they can take a lot of TC fire. The only thing about them, as you're watching them try to trail the scout, pretty slow.
Yeah, you know, that's the big problem with immobile units in general. And now we are seeing a little bit of some extra investment into Feudal Age. And now this actually reminds me of a Magic game I casted last week. He did not play the typical fast castle build against Mali because he said, no, I can't let Mali play their game. I'm going to play all in Feudal. And that is what it looks like MaarineLorD is about to do.
And, you know, this goes to show how much you respect the Malian boom, right? I mean, for the Ayabids, he's using all of his resources. He allocated them and has his macro spectacularly to making things like archers and horsemen and all that kind of stuff. You know, he is not thinking about Castle Age at all. Because if both these civilizations do go to Castle Age, MaarineLorD has assessed that he will lose. So that's why that Malian boom in Castle Age is just so devastating. So MaarineLorD's just trying to make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's one of those that it's not necessarily even like knowing that you'll lose. It's making the smarter decision. Like he's almost betting on himself because rather than the going fast castle is much more of like an all-in type thing where it's like, oh, if I'm all in, like if you don't get damage done with your timing, then he will lose. Well, now playing this game, it's like, oh, I can trust in my micro, I can trust in my trading, my scouting, a little bit more of the map control, and not just rely on this key timing push.
Yeah, and I mean, it can get finicky, that timing push, right? You got to do it absolutely perfectly. You got to make sure you have the right units, not only with the right time. So I understand why he's going for that. And for PuppyPaw being the Malians, again, you're just shoring up defensively. He's got a wall going on that backside just to make sure he doesn't have any raids, which is great. He's making some javelin throws just to make sure he doesn't get overrun. He sees MaarineLorD has a decent amount of archers. I mean, heads up, solid play by PuppyPaw. He's just staying alive.
Yep. Sending villagers on out. I think this might be headed on towards the deer, though. And so he will have to start reinforcing this location further and further. It is the deer that he is taking and needs to get this mass going quick. The good thing for PuppyPaw, though, is like MaarineLorD has that composition, though, that it feels like you have to like take the fight. Like with horsemen, you have to go all in to the javelins or else they're not going to be doing anything. And with Mali, both of their units just have a long range base damage from the, well, not necessarily long range, but base damage from the javelins. And then you also have that spear throw from the Donzo. So anytime that those units are stepping on up, they could not have the best trade, but villager gets taken down. One villager goes down for PuppyPaw and Woodline gets delayed for at least a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that one villager is really good. I mean, this is the time of the game where the Malian villagers do matter because you got to get all of your wood and your gold to get your cattle ranches and then put some cows in them, right? So having the villagers there on that wood line is very, very important. Now, MaarineLorD, he made a decent amount of units. You see military count 21 to 17. Kind of put a halt on it a little bit. Look at his macro right now, Dabs. He's got 800 food, almost 900 food, and almost 600 gold. So he just made a little bit of units just to make sure that PuppyPaw had to make something and couldn't just do his boom and couldn't just do his cow thing. So his Castle Age is going to be a little bit delayed. So MaarineLorD feels like he's got the upper hand to be like, okay, now I kind of guaranteed myself that I'm going to hit Castle first.
Yeah, and even still, their unit mass is somewhat equivalent, even though MaarineLorD, like you said, has a huge amount of resources in the bank built on up. He's about to be able to click up that age up. I think PuppyPaw had a scout circling around the backside, but it might have just been forced away right then. And Pit Mine is starting to be burnt.
Yeah, this is really important for MaarineLorD too. You know, he's got enough, at least he has enough units where he can do some torches. He's going to make PuppyPaw react, some javelin throws in that nice line formation, making sure there's no overkill, right? For those javelin throws, it's very, very important. Makes MaarineLorD back up. And this is one of the problems with the pit mine. They have 1,500 health, so you try to burn that down. It gives the Malians enough time to get over there. That pit mine is still churning out gold.
Scout got taken down, so PuppyPaw can no longer see what MaarineLorD has planned on up. Looks like javelin throwers have been able to close the gap, have been able to pick off 1-2 archers here and there, and MaarineLorD's headed on home, but he's headed home knowing that he's aging up behind this and not worried at all.
Oh yeah, stalled out PuppyPaw a decent amount. Going with economic wing to get those extra 8 villagers. You can see what he did with the berries, right?
Beautiful.
Look at
two.
Oh my, he's a micro genius. 2 berries.
See, this is where we saw Beastie in last game. He was just off the berries completely. MaarineLorD, he's like, no. I still want the berries. I still want to gather from them. Oh, he missed one of them. Maybe a little oversight on the bottom side, but this is where this is allowing him to just, you know, save that food resource in the long term and still use that gathering rate that you want.
Oh yeah, I mean, then that extra 100, this is very important for the IBIDs too, because it just means, you know, you are getting those south berries, which are pretty safe, right? But a lot of those other berries are near, you know, the middle of that canyon where some of that water is, that he's got deer packs a little bit to the east side. So those are going to be difficult for him to gather, right? Those plus 100, just gonna give him a little bit of time, get that map control, get some camel lancers out, stuff like that.
Corral.
Uh-oh.
I mean,
We're going
PuppyPaw, though, he was not too far behind on the timing. He only has 13 cows, though, out. Not the full 18 to 20 that you usually will see. Sometimes I say 18 because sometimes people like to eat some of those cows on up and use that gathering rate and then, you know, make it 20 a little bit later on. But walls are really the key here for PuppyPaw. He saw what happened on his wood line earlier. He said, no, I'm not going to let you step on in that close again. But the walls aren't going to be doing enough.
Oh, that's the worst.
And the villager falls.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, of course, but in that wall a little bit more forward might have helped him just to make sure that archer range wasn't there. But Corral's going to be at about 70%. MaarineLorD particularly angry against that palisade wall in particular, so PuppyPaw's got to be able to come in where that original town center is and be able to Donzo's throwing their spears. You know what I've noticed about the Malian Dabs as this fight goes on? There's just so many spears and they're chucking them.
That's what it always is, and that's why, like I said, you always feel like you have to dive and take the fight with them. You can't always like play this range mask, because if you're playing range, you're losing against jabs.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it's kind of what MaarineLorD has in terms of his army composition, right? I mean, most of it, 17 of his 27 right now are archers, and they probably will continue to be archers. But now MaarineLorD's starting to get into that heavy armored units, so stuff like the Ghulams, stuff like the Camel Lancers, because he has a little bit of time in order to do that. On the flip side, PuppyPaw going to his own kind of heavy units. We see this with the Malians over and over again. They go to Castle Age, they start getting sofas, right? They start importing that armor. Takes a while, but it'll get here once it's imported. And then moving to Musafatis as well.
Right when those Ghulams touched the deer villager, he immediately queued up 5 Musafati. It was like, oh no, okay, I need to start making Musafati now. And so unit composition, like, yeah, both have the arsenal to deal with whatever. MaarineLorD just feels like he's just being the aggressor, though. He's taking the relics behind this as well. With the first Camel Lance we just saw bringing one back. He's starting to try to pressure that secondary pit mine, and PuppyPaw has not been able to move out to take a third either.
No, but I'll tell you what, though, Dabs, even with the 2 pit mines, 700 gold per minute. That's nothing to sniff at. You know, he's got so much, and compared to what MaarineLorD has in terms of economy right now, 1,400 food per minute. The corral helped put him out. Obviously, it's not PuppyPaw's first rodeo with that corral, and then the pit mine's going to be helping him out as well. I think this is the time, 14 minutes in, this is the time where the Mali starts, you end up having, you know, 80, 90 military units, and you're like, how do I even deal with this?
Good little pick, picks off a couple of those archers. Looks like he's going to be able to pick off a camel lancer as well. So PuppyPaw is taking a couple decent trades. MaarineLorD's knocking on his doorstep on the wood line again. If it works once, if it works twice, why not just head back there again?
Yeah, I mean, if not much is getting in, not much is going on with it, you might as well take hits because for the Malians, that's probably the only place their villagers are going to be. Right? Because they have passive income and all the other ones. So those wood lines are going to be really, really important. Now PuppyPaw using those veteran Sofa, trying to get a raid of his own. Now Ayubid villagers, killing those Ayubid villagers is very, very important.
Yes, it is. They are not like the Abbasid where they'll boom up with 4 TCs and villagers cost half as much. They definitely need to keep their villagers a little bit safer. Sometimes you'll see them drop TCs later on, but they're paying full cost for it all. PuppyPaw just checking a couple of the food spots though. Deer though haven't been taken yet. It's been all berries so far for MaarineLorD because of the growth wing, and that's what I mean. It's wild to think about how much the growth wing, especially in Castle Age, saves as far as food.
Oh yeah, heads up play, from making sure he has enough villagers, and he could get a little bit of time. He doesn't necessarily need that town center immediately, like a delayed second town center, a lot of things that the Ivids like to do. But don't look now, as I talk about a delayed town center, as the Sofas are trying to get a raid. He's got a third one too.
Yeah, and this is what we saw him do against Demu as well, where he all of a sudden was like, oh, I took a decent trade, or I was, showing a lot of aggression, and now all of a sudden I'm booming up behind this as well.
I think the difference is, though, in this particular matchup is PuppyPaw's got 60 military units and the ability to reproduce them. So with these town centers, it's going to cost a lot of food for you to do it. Might slow down your production a little bit. PuppyPaw might just be able to beat his head against the wall and take him down. Might
slow down your production. It will definitely slow down your production, especially if PuppyPaw continues to focus on the food like he was doing. If he's able to circle around the Sofa, hit the deer, hit the other deer, I think MaarineLorD is on his last set of berries, and that's going to be it that's safe behind the walls other than the deer, like I just mentioned.
Right, and then it's either do you go for that deer and risk it, or do you farm transition and give up your tempo? If it feels like farm transition is going to play with those villagers on those berries. Looks like about 5 of them not going to go for the outpost. And MaarineLorD sending in his reinforcements. I'm wondering if he's going to take this fight, Dabs. This could be huge.
Oh, looks like he was thinking about it. Instead, he sends in a little bit of a raid on the wood line. Wham should have that outpost cleared on up at this point. Might lose another couple villagers for this, but this is Mali. They don't care. It's villagers.
Yeah, they're cool with it. You can see PuppyPaw not batting an eye to that wood line. All of those Sofas are going to be trying to go in, and as soon as I say that, they're going to back up just a little bit. They're looking for a good place to attack. That wood line on the north side gets vacated as well. This is idle time MaarineLorD can't afford right now.
Yeah, I mean, MaarineLorD's up 25 villagers, but PuppyPaw's up 25 military, and that military is scary. He should be able to constantly keep producing it, because even though some villagers might be idled, he has cows. Tons of passive food, and starts to burn down that secondary TC. Not the easiest thing to do, especially with the big mass here, and it looks like PuppyPaw might just have to take this fight.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I really like is composition as they're coming in here. I think
they're
they're
weak on the backside though. Sofa are going to want to try to dive past this, but the choke point's just too stuck into that location. Hasn't been able to cut through it yet, and just now gets past it on top of the Manjanique. Manjanique trying to fall back in between the crossbows. PuppyPaw still taking the fight, and looks like he is still winning the fight, but Manjanique is still alive, getting healed up by some villagers. Great micro by MaarineLorD. Range units still attacking the best they can, but will have to fall back, as I don't know where the Sofa mass is anymore.
No, the Sofa tried to dive in on the Manjanique, and they failed their mission. So it means the range mass for PuppyPaw needs to back up. He did a good job getting the splits going.
It was getting rallied into the wood line.
Oh, man.
It was getting rallied to the wood line. It just now is moving down. Oh, no. Oh, and that's what a small little raid could do. That raid that was on the wood line, PuppyPaw, yeah, he didn't, garrison all the villagers, because he just rallied units over there and was like, they'll go deal with them. Well, now that messed up the fight, because he needed some of those rallying Sofa there. If he had 5-10 extra Sofa, that ranged mass, that Mustafadi mass, wouldn't have had to fall back away.
Yeah, that really could change the tide, right? Look at all these. I think there's 8 that I'm counting. Have an extra 8 sofas there. That's down Manjanique. Taking down some of those archers, right? Imported armor. These sofas probably have about, based on how many, if you got iron under mesh and all of the other black characteristics, probably have something like 7 ranged armor. So they're going to be able to sit under those town center and deal with it. Man, that's just super rough. But it's not like PuppyPaw can't make them up.
He just needs to keep the aggression up, though. Look at the food per minute. MaarineLorD just now making that huge farm transition. And so if he's able to delay this food income from kind of being built on up, then that is what will still allow him to keep this military mass advantage that he has.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's tempo, right? Doing things like the farm economy. You're losing tempo doing that. That's why PuppyPaw is able to continue to churn out, because his economy's done. He has the pit mines. He has, he made his 3rd pit mine, if I can see that correctly, because he got map control, so it's near that secondary sacred site. So he's still going to get that increase in gold. While MaarineLorD on the other side, he's just trying to make farms, man. It's going to be difficult. Maybe he can make some archers because he has a decent amount of wood, but the food's not going to be there. Another raid on the south side, some of that 3 town center, not paying off as well when a lot of them end up becoming fertilizer.
Yeah, and we're finally starting to see the point where Puppy is finding some damage at certain places, and this is what happens with multi-town center when you start to run out of resources. But Manjanique gets a huge fire off on that range mass, and it's about to get another one. All the units are clumped up together. Oh my God!
Man, that choke point with the wood line and some of those IBID buildings, that house right there was devastating for PuppyPaw. But still, I mean, he's dealing with expensive units. He's got sofas, military count 93 to 73. He could basically pop cap himself and take it if he wants to, but keeping that aggression up is going to make sure MaarineLorD continues to be off the back foot, continues to not have map control. Look at this. He's zerging all of these units out. He has a group of 20, 25 of them over on the eastern side with a raid.
Yeah, and it looks like MaarineLorD's having to pull his army back over to that eastern side, having to pull his army back over to the southern side. He doesn't know where to go, and that's just the Mali onslaught. 106 units. More villagers being taken down, at least for a second or two. And this is having a kite on back. He's starting to burn down the wall on the southern side, and he's still attacking on the center yet again.
Look at, PuppyPaw's acting like a masterclass general, because this is a 3-pronged attack. East, west, north side of MaarineLorD's base. So he split up his units in all those different areas. Spearmen have no idea where to go. Over on the eastern side, they had some sofas to deal with. Now they have other units to deal with. Manjanique trying to get repaired on the middle side. It looks like this eastern side's going to get cleaned up, however.
The sofa broke through the south. This was really the key. Now the farming eco gets hit. MaarineLorD hasn't yet reacted, just now reacting, but military units are starting to get cleared up from PuppyPaw's side, and his mass is starting to get thinned out a little bit. He was up at 100 and something, now he's down in the 80s.
But he's queuing units. Dabs, look at that queue on the top part of your screen.
And look at MaarineLorD's queue. He's got nothing. He's just not able to remass back up as fast. I feel like PuppyPaw just needs like 1 or 2 rams or just something to deal with buildings. If he's able to start taking down buildings, start taking down production, that's hard. That's the hardest thing for MaarineLorD to kind of do, because he just doesn't have space on the front side.
No, he really doesn't. And honestly, I really like PuppyPaw's army composition change. While he's continuing to put on pressure, villagers are even getting in there with some of these spearmen, but Musfati are going to have some trouble in that particular department. He's getting archers now. He's going to go with an archer mass. He's going to get poison arrows, and those spearmen are not going to be long to spoiled if he continues to make.
Oh, he got baited by the wall. There was actually still the hole, never was rebuilt, and he's still fully diving the eco yet again and again and again. MaarineLorD, though, he's at almost double the villager count. If there's one civ that can do this, though, it is Mali with cow booms. And his villager count, he might not be doubled for too much longer if villagers start falling. There's tons of low-health villagers everywhere, but PuppyPaw is starting to lose his mass.
He is starting to lose it. I just don't know how much MaarineLorD can continue to make mass, because those villagers, yeah, he's got 101 of them, but most of the time they're running around for their lives.
Yeah, I mean, he still has that farm transition behind this. The walls are slowly finishing. Sprinkled, he's added more and more and more sprinkled towers throughout. And PuppyPaw, it just seems like PuppyPaw's throwing too much military away now. He hasn't actually gotten a lot to show for, except for idle time and more delay. I say that he's killed 37 villagers. It just doesn't feel like it.
And that's the power of the third town center, right? I mean, Sofa's continuing to raid down that south side, going to create a little bit of idle time. Now we're seeing a little bit of a slowing, and you're right. I mean, it wasn't necessarily quote-unquote throwing away units, but I think more units were getting lost to the point where PuppyPaw couldn't reproduce them quick enough. And that's what lets MaarineLorD come out of his base. He finally gets to breathe. PuppyPaw continuing to try to get some Sofa raids, but he knows he can't, with the Ibid mass, he can't take it straight up, or all of those archers are going to go down, those Sofas are going to go down. It felt like those Musafati didn't really do much of anything.
Yeah, I mean, he had his timing for it, but it looks like the timing is going away. MaarineLorD has 2,500 gold in the bank. He still had a market up front, so whenever he runs low on food, he can just buy up more and make up for the difference. But he's still losing out militaries, still losing out villagers, but I don't think it's going to be enough for PuppyPaw, as he has just lost that timing potentially. Sofa diving in yet again. There's still spears though on this front line. There isn't a ton of other units here from PuppyPaw yet.
Yeah, and you can see how the archers for the Malians are tickling those Ghulams for the Ibids. I mean, yeah, they're getting poisoned, but the Ghulams have a decent amount of health where they're going to need so much more archers to deal with this, and then you're at the point where why make anything else at all? You just have a ranged mass. That proves to be an issue for him as well. This is now PuppyPaw, I think, is on the back foot here. He tried to get aggressive, but it didn't do that game-ending damage that we needed from him.
Yeah, I feel like the first Manjanique that came out that wasn't ever able to be taken down for a while, that got a couple huge shots off, was solid, and then PuppyPaw never really like regrouped. He was split pronging, which was really cool to watch, but it wasn't really fully effective as he just lost a ton of the military.
Yeah, so you're kind of thinking if he just shipped everything down the middle or like picked an avenue or something like that, it probably would have been better off for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he takes the head-on engagements instead of getting a bunch of idle time and it forces MaarineLorD to take the fight, I think he would have won it. But instead, he took fight, like MaarineLorD took fights 60-20 in 3 different spots. It just took a little while, and MaarineLorD was throwing away villagers for it, which he's fine with because he had 3 TCs and, you know, other villagers were still working elsewhere.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, Defender's advantage definitely came in play too, right? I mean, MaarineLorD was able to stockpile a lot of these units to try to help you out. Now we got a lot of spears, a lot of crossbowmen, which these archers are going to do well against. Those spearmen are going to get poisoned along with some of that bonus damage. Sofa trying to get into that charge. Man, there's only about 3 or 4 of them, and it looks like MaarineLorD's making every counter in the book for him too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, at least PuppyPaw, he's somehow just, I mean, it's Mali. He somehow is continually equal in the military count. It's just over and over again, and even has the higher value units of the Sofa there that MaarineLorD doesn't have cavalry units out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are foot soldiers, which really helps them. I think it seems like MaarineLorD kind of strayed away from the Ghulams and now starting to add them because we see how many archers are in play. And the poison is really showing its strength here. There are a lot of these crossbowmen that end up going down. They get tickled by some of those arrows and then they realize how poisonous those arrows are. So good engagement from PuppyPaw and making MaarineLorD back up a little bit. We're seeing it's the constant army composition changes that I am just falling in love with this game. They're realizing what unit the opponent is making, and they're just making the counter something within the grand scheme of things. When your head is on a swivel, you're on 4 different places, something that you might not necessarily think about. Oh my god.
And that's the huge differing factor. It's just Manjanique in the back side, the high ground. Just utilize that, you know, utilize your front side mass. Your spears are running on up, and your Mangonel, your Manjanique just gets to chill on the backside, and we've seen how good MaarineLorD has been at pulling bills to heal it up to when it gets dove by the Sofa from PuppyPaw.
Yeah, I mean, especially that first Manjanique, right? It was able to get repaired while PuppyPaw was in that chokehold and had some Sofas trying to get around. I think that was a really pivotal fight for him, and now you can see economic count here 126 to 69. For PuppyPaw. And now MaarineLorD, look how much food per minute he's got, Dabs. He's at about 2,500. This is late game for him.
Yeah, the farm transition has fully come through, and
okay. See, walls aren't that good, guys. Walls aren't that good.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Okay. So things are there. I think MaarineLorD's confused. He's like, what? How? Anyways, MaarineLorD is max population. He's about to probably go up to Imp soon. And his farm transition has boomed up. He's at the point too where we're probably seeing like, 65, 70 buildings, maybe not up to the 5th golden age, but probably sitting there at the 4th.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be close to it. And now at this point, I mean, with MaarineLorD in Imperial Age, he's going to continue to stay pop capped for the foreseeable future. He got through that Malian death push of Castle Age. And now Malians, they hit that huge power spike like we see, and a lot of the times they end up winning the game because of it. But afterward, if they don't, now what do you do?
Imperial Age, Fort of the Hunters. Woohoo!
Sure. Yeah, let's put 26 of them bad boys on there. Let's get the build in that thing. I haven't seen a Mustafati gunner
right next to the wood line. It's only halfway up. This thing might get canceled. MaarineLorD's going to be there.
Uh-oh.
Oh my gosh. And yes, villagers don't matter as much for Mali. They do matter a little bit, especially when there's this many villagers. Hello, PuppyPaw?
Oh, he's trying to stick it, and he's not going to stick it.
Finish it. There's 6 villagers left. He loses. It's done.
He's not sticking.
GG. Game number 1 goes over to MaarineLorD.
Wow. Unbelievable. I mean, this was just constant aggression from PuppyPaw over and over again. Like we said, beating his head into that IU-bit base. And he just couldn't beat those walls down. MaarineLorD was able to hold, had a good villager count at the end, got to Imperial, got rid of that Malian death ball that we worry about so much. And I'm sure all of you in chat have played against over and over again, but able to get through it. MaarineLorD with that 1-0 lead heading in the second game of this series. Man, that was some back and forth.
Yeah, I felt like looking at the map from God view, it felt like PuppyPaw was in such a good position when MaarineLorD dropped those couple TCs. It felt like, MaarineLorD didn't have a lot of food to go with. He was going to struggle with military production. He was going to struggle with, villager production if he's making military, but farm transition came through just in time. PuppyPaw wasn't able to do enough damage with the massive dive that he had with over 100 military units, and unbelievable job by MaarineLorD, because I think if that had been almost any other player, it would have been a whole different story as far as villagers getting taken down. He was so reactive to all the raids, rebuilding walls, building additional walls, making sure villagers aren't falling. And that really is the reason why he was able to stabilize, was able to win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, MaarineLorD did. This is something that when Age of Empires 4 first came out, this is something that I noticed that someone like the Viper did all the time, where he was able to be as greedy as humanly possible without losing the game. And then it ends up paying off. MaarineLorD did that spectacularly, like to perfection, against the Malians, where that's the civilization that is supposed to steamroll you. And he made sure that he did not get steamrolled. Take a look at what we got, Dabs, game number 2. Huh?
Oh,
we got Jeanne d'Arc. Let's go.
We're luckily enough. We're getting to see your 2 favorite civs today. I didn't think we'd get to see much, if any, of JD, but we get to see some JD versus Japan. So, what do you think about this matchup being a good old JD lover?
Yeah. So this is something that if everybody in chat is enjoying my cast for the first 4 or 5 hours, now you're gonna hate me because I love Jeanne d'Arc. I love her so much. You know that? She's just so much fun to play. She's for at least in the meta that I play in, she's ultra aggressive. You make a bunch of knights, you get yourself some holy wrath, do a little whirly deuce from Jeanne d'Arc, right? Trying to take down some spearmen. But I think in this matchup too, being aggressive as Jeanne d'Arc seems like a pretty good idea, because for Japan, it takes a little while for them to get going. Right? It takes them a little bit. They got to get their barracks down if they want to get feudally aggressive. If they want to go fast castle, they try to do that as fast as possible. So getting aggressive as Jeanne d'Arc, I'm going to say this. You've watched my stream. You've watched the way I use knights and Jeanne d'Arc. Just make a bunch of knights and go beat them down.
Well, people are calling you some choice words over here, but
I don't care.
Let's see how this game number 2 goes. We will get the score flipped and swapped on up as MaarineLorD is up 1-0, spawning in the south side in the color red as Japan, and in the north we got PuppyPaw as JD in the color blue.
Yeah, you love to see it. Now with Japan, pretty typical build. I mean, out of them, but like we kind of talked about a little bit before, it's really nice for Japan when they get up to feudal because they get things like the Cura storehouse is going to help them with their farm economy and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times, like when you build the Cura storehouse, it's not necessarily it's not like there's no counterplay to it. It's not like a Malian pit mine or like the cow boom or something like that. You could still go in there and torch some farms. You can go in there and take down some villagers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what we have in store for us. I do not think it's going to be quite like what you were mentioning here with the all night feudal play.
Yeah, probably
I want to say these players or Puppy in general, especially with JD when I've seen him. I want to say obviously like you'll still do knights here and there. You might do the old what I call like the old divine build where you go like 1 or 2 knights into 2 TCs and it like forces your opponent, like it kind of feels like you put your opponent on the clock, but how does Japanese react? Are they going to go TCs themselves as they love their TC booming as well, or are they just going to go fast castle, which has been the meta build for Japan for a good little bit now?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason why that fast castle from Japan is the meta build. One, it's a lot of fun to pull off, you know, and number two, you get that floating gate, you get the Urshirer in either an archery range or a stable, and then you're able to harass your opponent, get map control, get relics, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think, honestly, just because Jeanne d'Arc you're worried about, you know, you're playing against, this is the child civilization of the parent French, right? So you're going to be seeing some Royal Knights. School of Cavalry is going down by Jeanne d'Arc, and she's going to be the only one building it. Got to remember, if we take a look at Jeanne d'Arc, she has the ability to construct the kingdom a little bit faster. Those buildings are getting built 33% faster with just her. She works at 33% strength, or extra strength, I should say, of a normal villager, and she'll be able to get to level 2 in that regard. But anyway, for the Castle Age, for MaarineLorD, you can do things like make Onimusha spam a bunch out, Mounted Samurai spam a bunch out. We saw that in one of our first series of the day. We'll see if MaarineLorD wants to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Onimusha, it's unbelievable when you actually see them go up against knights. You're like, oh, okay, Onimusha, here we go. And then you're like, oh my gosh, knights are just getting shredded. It's like they are just like the perfect counter unit to them, utilizing that mobility, utilizing that to the fullest effect. But we got a good bit of ways from Castle Age, as it's just now going up to feudal with the Cura storehouse, which usually is dropped right on touching the wood line. Save yourself that lumber camp and, you know, give yourself some safe spots for your initial couple farms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being by the wood line, although it's right next to the town center, it's not necessarily going to be, you know, right next to it. But we know from the Cura storehouse, if you didn't know this, when you do build it, your first farm always spawns to the northwest of the Cura storehouse. So you could position yourself in an area where the first 3 or 4 farms end up being safe, and it looks like MaarineLorD did that so perfectly. And he saves just a little bit of wood on that lumber camp, so love the spot.
Yep. He's actually, all the farms around that are going to be nice and safe until the wood line's completed, and at that point, MaarineLorD's not going to care. Sheep's looking pretty even at this point in the game. Favoring Puppy just a little bit, which he is the one who needs it a little more, wants it a little more, so good for him. And there's the first knight already in queue, and oh my gosh, it's a tower rush.
I think, oh my gosh, yeah, because a
and
villager's
immediately reacted though, MaarineLorD, he's ready.
Wow. Heads up play. Jeanne d'Arc, even though she's still a peasant, by the time she does get her journey down to the south end, she will be leveled up into level 2. And honestly, what I've been seeing in the highest forms of play, in that Conk 3 play with Jeanne d'Arc, I've been seeing more Archer.
Yeah, we have been seeing a little bit more often here as of recent. A lot of times you can use her Divine Arrow, get a villager pick early on or so. But from here, MaarineLorD, Cura storehouse is about to finish. He's immediately going to get arrow slits upgraded, I bet, with one of these, probably that exact outpost. Question is, which one will finish first? Arrow slits is on the way, outpost is on the way, and it's going to be the outpost.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. I mean, Jeanne d'Arc's obviously going to help a little bit too, building that outpost pretty quick. And this is something like when you're building towers against a tower rush, this is something that you need to do, right? You need to put towers in both areas, because if you put a tower on one side of the gold, they just outpost to the other side, right? So getting those second towers, or that second tower, I should say, just means that PuppyPaw has to put his directly up front and center.
And it finishes just in time. Villager goes down to like 1 health. But this is where PuppyPaw, he's moved over to the stone. He's probably going to not only get arrow slits here real quick, but also just do a 2 TC behind this, as this once arrow slits finishes up, this should delay MaarineLorD's Castle Age play.
Yeah, and that's all you got to do when you're playing against the Japanese. Just make sure that Castle Age doesn't get that big. Villager at 3 health specifically. Going to be wandering in the opposite
And it is
direction.
Archer.
We got a hunter, Jean d'Arc, ladies and gentlemen.
If only the wolves still gave XP, PuppyPaw would be licking his chops over here.
Yeah, that play. Remember when it used to be +12? Oh, the good old days.
And he would have gotten a free 36 XP over there, but instead he's just circling around, going to try to find somewhere to aggro some villagers, and MaarineLorD proactively pulls off the berries. Oh, or are the berries gone? I couldn't even tell. Oh, there's one berry left. Oh my gosh, what a snipe! Unbelievable.
Oh, Jean d'Arc.
I mean, it's not Archer, John. She had a freaking Barrett 50 cal up in the sniper crow's nest and just popped.
360 no scope with the intervention. You remember those days?
Oh yeah, I was a COD 4 gamer for sure.
I know you were.
Modern Warfare 2 gamer. That was my bread and butter. But MaarineLorD has now been fully denied off of the gold. He doesn't have a good secondary gold to take either. And on the other side, PuppyPaw, he's moving out with 8 villagers. He's about to drop a second TC on the deer. So this is feeling pretty good for PuppyPaw in this game, it feels like.
Yeah, because I mean, doing that little bit of tower shenanigans, picking off that one villager, actually fortifying that outpost as well, it means MaarineLorD might have to move, try to get gold somewhere else, might need to get a military production building that he doesn't want to get, and does with a barracks, and has a couple spearmen coming out just to make sure he's safe back home, and it's going to be adding a second barracks. So MaarineLorD has to kind of derive a different plan here.
Oh, Knights, hello. Oh, okay. Oh, they went for different villagers. PuppyPaw just wanted a quick in and out there. He saw the spears and he was like, I can get one and get out without taking too much damage. But they split focus, and instead, just villagers took a nice old lance in the back and then walked on away.
Well, I'll tell you what, now that Jean d'Arc is in play right now, you're going to be able to, if he leaves those villagers that are damaged, we'll be able to get a divine arrow right in their dome.
Villager stays alive, jumps out the other side at 1 health.
All right. Now, is that a shinobi? What are we doing here?
What? You can't build shinobi.
No, I mean, because it was ninja. It was stealthy.
Oh, okay. I was like, what are you talking about here? House, though, hey, PuppyPaw's like, hey, at least I'm doing something over here. Yeah, he's stuck in a corner, and there's so many spears, so I'm kind of scared for these knights and for JD, as there is now a horseman out as well. PuppyPaw's getting cut off. JD could just say goodnight. She uses a divine arrow. One of the knights falls as well, and a good little pickup from MaarineLorD, but JD will end up spawning back. What's MaarineLorD going to do now? Is it time to try to burn this fortified outpost?
Yeah, I think it might be a due time. I mean, he's got a decent amount of spearmen to kind of help him out. You know, PuppyPaw going to be adding some barracks of his own with a couple spearmen. And I know for French and Jean d'Arc alike, they really don't like to make spearmen if they don't have to. You know, they like making knights, they like making archers, and that's the usual composition that they try to get into. So it might be a little difficult for him, and Jean d'Arc, with that second town center, is going to need a little bit more time for that town center to actually pay off.
I mean, what this makes me think of is like with JD in a spear versus spear war, it makes me think of like when Ottomans get, like, you're in a Dark Age Otto versus Mongol matchup, and then Ottoman all of a sudden get their get their 2 little free monks from their vizier point. It's like, yeah, you're gonna have extra healing, you're gonna have extra damage, and you're gonna win the spear on spear war.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like. And it's just because the divine arrow, right, is really going to help you out. The spearmen will be able to tickle each other. You know, one spearman will be down to like 30-some health, then Jean d'Arc can go in and get that final kill for the extra XP. Those spearmen still in the Dark Age, but we'll get to Feudal Age exactly as I finish that sentence and make it a point. So now with PuppyPaw going to town center, he's continuing to push some units. He really, really wants to make sure he wants to take fight.
And there it is. The fortified pressure. There's knights here, but there's so many spears, and I thought he was actually going to stay in the outpost. just to kind of continually redirect it, have a little bit of extra arrow fire, but instead he just jumps out and just kind of doing this back and forth game. But JD arrives. The spears arrive as well, but I think MaarineLorD has done his job. He has accomplished his goal, but I think the outpost did as well. It delayed MaarineLorD from the castle edge play that he clearly wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because if he didn't have that outpost, right, he's continuing to get that gold. There hasn't been too much pressure from him. He was doing a good job of walling. He walled off his food resources over on the western side. He probably would have been castled 2 minutes ago, to be honest.
Oh, I think even before that, but yeah. I'm kind of shocked that PuppyPaw didn't like have units inside of that still, or kind of know that was coming soon. But accomplished his goal. He's up in Vills. He's been kind of playing this nice aggressive game. He's circling around now to where walls have been built, and MaarineLorD is not in the greatest position as far as military goes. He's mass spears, but mass spears against PuppyPaws is going to be not as good with Divine Restoration and Divine Arrow.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that Divine Restoration healing everything around you, essentially, for how wide of a radius it is, by 30% could really make or break this. But now we have spear on spear action. There is a Royal Knight in there that might end up going down. You're seeing +8s on your screen over and over again.
Juicy XP coming in, but TC fire was just close enough, so a lot of those spears were actually getting taken down by TC fire, which is not where you want to be. Knights arrived just a little too late, and JD gets surrounded.
Man, and yeah, she's got nowhere to go. She's
now
trying to.
That's not I thought this was supposed to be a PG broadcast over here. That's not something that we're supposed to be showing.
Yeah, we're probably gonna get banned over here. She was quite.
We'll edit that out of the YouTube video.
Oh my god. Now this is the version 3 of Jeanne d'Arc now. 500 gold went into purchasing Jeanne d'Arc. So quite the issue. You know, if Jeanne d'Arc doesn't go down those 2 times, maybe PuppyPaw might be able to get up to castle with the amount of units that he has. It's at the opposite side. MaarineLorD is going to go up to castle 11 on the floating gate. PuppyPaw still needs to get a little bit of gold to do so, and I think his time to do some damage against the Japanese might be starting to come to a halt. I think we're going to be experiencing a longer showdown now.
Yeah, I mean, the good benefit for Puppy is that he at least is ahead in that villager count, but floating gate is about to finish, and Japanese is going to be in their sweet spot. They're going to be castle age. Oh, good little bait there. And it's still so much XP going over to JD.
Yeah, and you know what's, look at what PuppyPaw's doing to microing these knights. He has the knights on a specific control group, so those spearmen, when they back up, they take down the Jeanne d'Arc spearmen instead of the knights. So those healthy units continue to stay alive. They might be able to get a charge off, and they do. Those 3+8s, that's +24 you probably wouldn't have had before. Jeanne d'Arc obviously has X-ray vision, able to see through that forest, going to be able to take hits on those areas. I think she might be close to level 3.
I'm pretty sure after this fight, gotta be, but I think if you're PuppyPaw, you pull back with your knights, or you pull back with JD, and you regroup, because now upgrades have come through, and JD's down again.
Oh my god. My heart can't take much more. Watching her go down over and over. I mean, at least it's 250 gold. It's not the 500, right? So if she was level 3, it would take 500. Even if he wants to buy her back in the first place, which I would probably recommend, because it means all of those recharge rates of consecration, that economic bonus that you need, is actually ticking. So buying her back ends up becoming a good idea to do. But again, 3 times, Dabs? 3 times?
Look at how close the guild hall, though, is to finishing. PuppyPaw's about to match up this timing, and match up the timing with a better eco behind it. Spears are starting to dive. PuppyPaw taking the fight for now just because he knows he needs to defend this guild hall for a little bit longer. He's not quite there yet. Reallocating the vills to the backside. He had to just put the vills. Guild hall finishes, needs to run. Jump on inside. Head on home.
I don't care where you go. You just can't stay here. You gotta get out of there.
Just get out of here.
Spears,
spear upgrade is on the way, so you don't want to take this fight. You want to keep the masses as much as you can. Villagers are running on over to some berries next to his original TC, and some knight raiding on the backside. So a great job by PuppyPaw to give himself a little bit of breathing room, as that is now, what, 3 or 4 vills that were taken down. TC's been left, though. And that's what, 20 spears now, just burning the secondary TC.
And that TC will go down. if nothing is done about it. I'm curious to see what PuppyPaw tries to do in terms of army composition, because we're seeing our first Onabugisha. You're seeing trying to take hits on that guild hall. Those knights from Jeanne d'Arc on the south side basically worth their weight in gold for how many villagers ended up going down. But economic lead isn't going to progress as far. MaarineLorD's going to stop that bleeding, get the second town center, so that's going to be huge for him.
Yep, PuppyPaw is up 20 vil still. He's starting to mass up some arbs. Still has a little bit of some spear front line, not a massive one, and some men-at-arms in queue. I feel like this is just now where if you're PuppyPaw, you're like, just stop the bleeding, stop the hemorrhaging over here, delay, delay, delay. But those barracks that got consecrated getting taken down is so sad for him.
Yeah, I mean, because the first thing that it stops is food. You know, it gives you that little bit of food reduction. But then once you get the upgrade from the blacksmith, also the wood and gold ends up being a little bit cheaper. So making and essentially wasting those consecration charges are so very important, especially because John probably doesn't have that many in terms of charges because of how much she had to get resurrected over and over again. Those Onabugisha, though, gonna make quick work of those spearmen. Not so much to get the arbaletria. I did see the Gambeson's upgrade come in, so he does have +5 melee armor. But it looks like for the 4th time, somebody, God help me, is she gonna go down? Okay, she's fine.
PuppyPaw just didn't have the numbers again. He's taken fight after fight where he's just like, it's a losing fight. And this is usually where I feel like these top players are so good about like seeing like, oh, he has 12 spears, I have 10. I'm gonna back away with my 10. But instead he's been like, I'll just take it for now. My other spears are on the way. It's like, no, that's not how this game works.
No, and I mean, honestly, it feels like when you're gonna fight against Jeanne d'Arc, and I think one of the reasons why people don't like it as much is when you're taking fights, you have to win it convincingly and overwhelmingly, and even kill Jeanne d'Arc in the process, because that XP is basically positive EV for her. And now she hits level 3, she spawns a horse out of the blue somehow, gets Jeanne's champion, so they're going to be able to do that extra damage to the spearmen. So now that there's a level 3, maybe we're going to see a little bit of stabilization. Remember, PuppyPaw has +20 villagers. I feel like all he needs to do is just right the ship.
Yeah, and I mean, boar gets taken. PuppyPaw going on over to... Is he about to go for another TC? It's like, why is he grabbing stone right now? It's going to be a keep? Only 4 villagers? I think it's another TC.
Yeah, because the keep doesn't really give you the...
And MaarineLorD spots the boar getting killed, getting pulled, and immediately sends his reinforcements on over there. And it's not just a few units that he has. He has 44 units on the field compared to half that for Puppy.
Yeah, and I mean, Jeanne d'Arc's best unit, which is the Royal Knight at this part, ends up becoming null and void, and it's very expensive. A lot of them are going to end up going down. Arbaletria is basically making up the majority of the force now. Not really much of a front line. They're only John's champions, which are good against spearmen, but there are just way too many spearmen. That Divine Restoration coming in clutch. Jeanne d'Arc! Oh my god, I can't take this anymore.
What is that, sixth time she's gone down? Villagers are headed back there to try to build another outpost, but PuppyPaw just lost that fight. The villagers can't go back out there, and he's starting to lose more and more of this mass. Immediately buys back JD, but I'm not sure if this is going to be enough. We're seeing it's just one little horseman, but we've seen how much those invisible horseman raid can end up doing over time if not reacted to.
And I'm curious if he does. I mean, there's been a lot of work kills here. You know, MaarineLorD's at about 12. You're looking at the economic count out of both sides. Now that there's only one town center, every worker kill count is very, very important. 67 to 59. And
what?
Oh no. The one thing we didn't see from MaarineLorD, though, is he does have a second town center on the south part of his base. So he might be able to overwhelm.
Oh, easily will be able to outmatch the eco at this point, as he's going to be producing more villagers and he's taking down more villagers. Farm transition was attempted and JD not able to take the dub. So MaarineLorD looking to keep that win streak going, not drop any games so far, and he did it in a very convincing fashion, as it did not look good for him at a good point in time this game.
No, because I mean, I think this just shows how proficient MaarineLorD is adapting to his initial plan. You know, because he was trying to get that fast castle and he was macroing there, and then JD came over and said, not so fast, my friend, puts an outpost down in feudal age. So he switched it up a little bit, made some military, made sure he was able to defend himself, took down Jeanne d'Arc a couple times. All of a sudden, MaarineLorD gets to castle age, gets that initiative that he really needs to snowball the game.
Yeah, I mean, just really, really clean series.